This is the Saturday Morning Special from Slasher Sports.
We are back. Welcome, everyone, to Slasher U, a college football podcast from Slasher Sports. It's the Saturday Morning Special. We took a week off, but you know what? Just to prime up and get ready for the third Saturday in October, this is going to be the best week of college football so far. I'm your host, Christian Rao, here with my co-host, Steve Feck. Steve, happy Saturday to you. Man, this is going to be a wild one.
It is, and it's my national holiday. It's National Grouch Day. October 15th is National Grouch Day. And for all fairness, Christian is covering for me, being the older, beat up, fragile type. I was under the weather, so I was unable to be part of the show. Christian is too kind to do the show without me. So it's not like we were taking this isn't like ESPN where you take really important weekends off to report on things. We took the weekend off because I was under the weather, but I am raring to go for this slide of our Saturday six pack.
Yeah, absolutely. In the Saturday six pack, we have 6 teams. Actually, we have 6 games, 12 teams all ranked. This is a huge slate. 3 of those games are battles of undefeated. This is the first time since 1993, Steve, that we have gone this deep into the season, into week 7, and we have 3 undefeated games happening. This is fantastic. This is going to be a great slate. We already got people in the comments chiming in. Drixley, friend of the show, thank you so much. Let's go. Welcome back. Can't wait to hear your take on the upcoming Alabama-Tennessee game. You know we're going to be digging into that one. But first, I want to dig into another battle of the unbeaten. I think this is a good way to start it off. We'll give you a little bit of a teaser, a little bit of wait for the Bama-Tennessee, because we know you want to talk about that. We'll get that just afterwards. But first, let's dig in to Penn State versus Michigan. This is another good one. Gus and Joe on the call again, Steve. I feel like they're like the official or unofficial broadcasters of Michigan football this year. I feel like they have been on the call for the last month when it's come to Michigan. I love Gus and Joe on the call, so I'm not mad about that whatsoever. This is going to be a really good football game. This is the early slate game of the week in my mind. This is one you got to pay attention to. We're going to really see what Michigan's got. Now, we've had the possibility in the past to see, okay, when they played Maryland, is that going to be the week they finally get tested? Okay, we saw maybe some signs of weakness against Indiana last week. That might be because of the issues that happened with Mike Hart on the sideline. I think that really actually had a big deal with their psyche and their confidence. They looked great in the second half. They really stepped up. On the other hand, Penn State, last year they battled in. They came in and they were undefeated until the 6th game of the year. Then they headed into Iowa City and lost, and then they ended with a 7-6 record. Their season fell apart last year at this time. Now they head into the big house. This is going to be a big game. What's your take on this one?
Well, I'm going to give you more of an Eeyore take on this, in that it's a battle of undefeateds in the Big Ten. I wish I could get excited about it. How good is the Big Ten? I think this game in itself is kind of a microcosm that can answer that question. It's not that, as I knock over all of my equipment, it's not that these are bad football teams or that it's a bad conference. It's just, it's very underwhelming, I think, across the board this year. So I tried to get worked up for this. I mean, you would think it'd be easy given my pathological hatred of all things Penn State. You think I would really be all psyched and jump all over the Michigan bandwagon? And I'm gonna pick Michigan in this game. I think it's all up to how brightly J.J. McCarthy shines in this game is going to tell us how good Michigan really is, because Michigan's a deep and talented football team. Ultimately, since McCarthy has taken over, as he performs, his team performs. If he has another solid game, as I suspect, I think that is going to tell us volumes about whether Michigan is seriously going to contend with Ohio State to win the Big Ten.
JJ McCarthy played mistake-free football against Iowa, something we said absolutely had to happen against a top-notch defense. In this case, Penn State's not as great as a defense as Iowa. They do have maybe some issues in the secondary, but that doesn't go unchanged. McCarthy still needs to play mistake-free football if they want to remain in this football game and stay competitive. I do think Michigan can win this football game as well, but it does rely on the quarterbacks. It also relies on Sean Clifford on the other side. Last year, when I said their season went to absolute crap in the 6th game of the year, that's because Clifford went down with an injury. He had to linger throughout that injury all season. We haven't seen that this year. Clifford really hasn't been as great as he should be so far this season. So we're still waiting for that next level for him to unlock that we've seen in years past. So I think that there's an opportunity he can really step up this week. JJ McCarthy, we've seen, even though he is a young dude, can be poised against tough defenses. I think that doesn't change in this one. And then also, I mean, we can't forget to rule out that we have 2 great running backs in this football game. Probably the 2 best, 2 of the best. I shouldn't say the 2 best because there are a lot of good running backs in the Big Ten. The 2 of the best in the Big Ten with Blake Corum and then the sensational freshman in Nick Singleton. So I think that it really comes down to, we might see the winner have an advantage in time of possession. It might come down just to that, or maybe a few broken plays in the secondary. I'm kind of leaning towards Penn State to make that mistake if that's the case. The line has sat at about -7 for Michigan. It's down from 7.5 that came back a couple days ago. Some people are projecting Michigan to win by 12 or 13 at most. That's as farthest I've seen as projections. That's where you're sitting too, it looks like. I'm going to take Michigan on the points here. I think they can win by 7. That's as far as I'm going. I mean, I don't think it's going to be 12 or 13. It sounds like as far as you are. I think 10 is the max that they win this game by.
Well, again, my confidence is confidence in McCarthy getting the job done. You're absolutely right. It's going to be time of possession. And it's now, in fairness to Penn State, they have risen to the occasion on the road against the 2 tough road teams, that they played. I mean, okay, Auburn is not the Auburn of old, but you're still going into an SEC environment, and they thumped them. They absolutely took them to school, no pun intended. I don't see Penn State being able to match up and keep pace with what Michigan is going to do. I do believe that McCarthy's going to take advantage of the fact that the Penn State defense, which is a solid unit, it always is, just like they always have a good pair of running backs, and they do with Singletary and who am I forgetting? Oh my God. Well, whoever the other guy is, he's another freshman, and he's the guy that is maybe more of a big play breaker. And I'm sorry, Penn State fans. I know it's a block. I block anything.
The hate
positive.
Is real for you. I know it.
I mean, it really, really is, and it's not fair to you. So that's why I want to point out, some positive things here, for your team. Penn State, your team did rise to the occasion on the road this year, and they have the ability to win the time of possession. I think that they're just going to get outclassed, down the road. McCarthy's going to exploit the fact they're going to be keying so much on Corum that he's going to be able to make some, not necessarily big downfield plays, but he's going to be able to make those sideline passes and keep drives going. So that's where I'm so confident that Michigan's going to cover. And I really do think that by the 4th quarter, the cream rises to the top. Penn State is once again going to have to position themselves the rest of the year to see what SEC or Big 12 team is going to kick the daylights out of them in a bowl game. And Michigan starts gearing itself up and preparing itself for that showdown against Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's an opportunity that Penn State could win this game. I do think an upset is possible. I think we have an opportunity for 6 upsets in this one. We're going to talk about 6 games on the 6-pack. I think there's an opportunity for an upset in all of them compared to the favorite. But I'm leaning towards Michigan in this one. We do see another comment here from Drixley. Thanks for joining us. Says Steve Haight should be a segment. Just him trying to say nice things about Penn. Looks like Penn State. That'd be a fun segment. Just watching you talk crap about some of those teams that you don't really care for and explain your hate, because I'm sure that you have you could probably fit a couple episodes about your hate for Penn State. I'm sure.
Well, I mean, I would have to go to a therapist first to bring out all the childhood related. Again, it boils down to growing up in New Jersey, which has never really had a powerhouse college football team other than maybe in the 30s and 40s with Princeton. And I wasn't alive for that, even though it looks like I might have been. I wasn't alive that far back. And Penn State just coming in and just taking all of the best players from Jersey and playing at Penn State. There's other things that add to it. I mean, having lived in Pennsylvania the majority of my life, there's other things that kind of add into that hatred. But I like the idea. So there's talk of me doing some 15-minute little shows. Maybe I should focus one just on hatred of different programs, in college sports.
We can call it "Get Off My Lawn." That might be
get up. Yeah.
All right, let's dig into arguably, in my mind, Steve, I think this is so far the game of the year. I think this is the one that we really need to pay attention to. If you are not watching any college football other than one game this week, I think this is the game you need to pay attention to. 3:30 Eastern time on CBS. Number 3 Alabama heading into number 6 Tennessee. There's a reason College Game Day is there. There's a reason SEC Now is there. Too bad we're not there. But this is going to be an electric atmosphere. Tennessee is looking to end a big-time drought against Alabama, and there is a lot of hope that this year is the year that Tennessee can do it. Now, there's a lot of question marks surrounding the quarterback of Alabama, Bryce Young, former Heisman Trophy winner, if he will get the start, if he'll actually get some playing time. It seems to be that he is expected to return this week. Everything is in the right spot moving forward. And if that's the case, I think that's a huge win for Alabama. Obviously, you bring a Heisman Trophy candidate or a Heisman Trophy winner back from the year prior, and then you're playing against a top-notch team like Tennessee. Obviously, you want that. Not only bringing him back is it huge, but it changes their entire offense. We saw it last week when Milroe's in, they do tend to lean towards the run a lot more. Well, we've actually got some stats to back that up now. So far this season, when Bryce Young is at quarterback, they run the ball 33% of the time. When Milroe is in, they run the ball 64% of the time. So that just shows right there that the entire offense is changing with the package they use. Bryce Young, obviously, they feel more confident in him throwing the football. This has the opportunity to be a very high-scoring game. Throwing the football is going to be necessary without question. So I do believe that is much needed. I think if Tennessee wants to stay in this football game, they have to find a way to stop Bryce Young, because I do think he's going to play. They also need to find a way to stop Jahmyr Gibbs, because that running back is absolutely electric. I think he might be the best running back in the country right now, what he has done in the last few games. However, I think this matchup, when Tennessee has the ball, Bama's, his defense is second in the nation. Tennessee's offense is second in the nation. Points per drive, Tennessee offense is second. Bama's defense is fourth. That's going to be the matchup right there when Tennessee has the football against Bama's defense. And I haven't even got to Hendon Hooker yet. Hendon Hooker, in my mind, is the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. He definitely won that honor in September. If we gave out the Heisman every month, Hendon Hooker would have it for the month of September. We hardly talked about him because he was underrated. We talked about that last week, where people hardly talked about him because other names like CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, as we mentioned, always took the cake. Hendon Hooker has really showed up. He has done some amazing things and has took this team on his back and really took off with the Tennessee Volunteers. I actually really like Tennessee in this football game. I don't think Bryce Young is going to be 100% whether he plays or not. I mean, I know that AC joint, that's a tough one to go through. If he starts, it's because he's got to manage on his pain management. He's got an idea of what he can do. That doesn't mean he's going to be 100%. We've heard it from some former quarterbacks who have had to deal with that. They said it usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to fully heal. Usually in that time, they can throw the football. It's painful. That velocity's down. That could really impact how his reads happen, maybe some shorter checkdowns, but that means the long ball might not be there, Steve. Current line has Bama at -7. It's down from -8 at the beginning of the week. Some people think that the rate's going to be all the way up to 8 for Bama in the favor. If I'm playing this bet, I'm playing Tennessee with the points. I think they can actually get this done straight up. So if you give me 7 points in the favor of the Volunteers, I'm all for it, Steve.
See, I thought for sure you were going to pick Alabama, but because I'm with you. I mean, I think Tennessee can absolutely win this game outright. Tennessee's defense has gotten incrementally better each week. Are they a shutdown dominating defense? No, they are not. They're going to have to find a way to at least contain the Alabama running attack. I would be surprised if Nick Saban didn't use both quarterbacks and alternating them through the game. Not only to, let's say Young takes a shot, okay, give him a couple series off. Let the pain is always there, but it allows some of the nerve, flashes to kind of calm down a little bit. It also will keep that Tennessee defense off balance. No doubt that they've been scrimmaging and practicing against both quarterbacks, and I think they know they're going to see both quarterbacks going through there. Alabama's a great football team, and it's just a given. It's going to happen as long as Nick Saban patrols the sidelines. And odds are, even after Nick Saban dies, the cryogenically frozen head of Nick Saban is going to be pushed up and down on a cart with a little headset on, like I have on, up and down the thing, and he's still going to control, the college football landscape for the rest of the 21st century. Statistically, everything says this is the game that Tennessee always finds a way to lose and that Alabama always finds a way to win. But I just think that the Tennessee offense is so balanced and so good. And that's not a knock against the Alabama defense. The Alabama defense is terrific, but they've had their moments against teams like Texas A&M and Texas, and even I'm forgetting the other game that the defense was kind of like
A&M.
About. I said A&M already, but either way, I think can you bet the over? It's like they're in over line, because I think this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I think there's a prime opportunity for the over to hit in this one. That Nick Saban head thing rolling, that just gave me Futurama vibes. You're lucky that Futurama doesn't have a show anymore, because I'm pretty sure they'd steal your idea. It looks like there's some in the comments. I hope that doesn't happen. Haha. All right. Well, well, I don't know. I think Futurama's out of the way. So I do think that Tennessee can win this football game. I think that there's prime opportunity. Again, if Alabama wins this game, wouldn't be surprised. That is what I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. I think I would be surprised if Tennessee wins the game, even though I do think there's a prime opportunity for them to do that. I really love what Hendon Hooker's doing. The concerns of Bryce Young not being 100% is huge for me. Milroe has done a decent job, but last week they lost the turnover margin by, I think, -3 against Texas A&M. If they do that at all this week, there's no way they even stay in this football game. They have to protect the football. Alabama has not done a good job doing that this year, something that they have shown some weakness on. And we usually can't say we can find a weakness on a team like the Crimson Tide. This year, we have seen that turnovers are an issue. Also, they're not as disciplined as we've seen in the past. I think last week they had 2 unsportsmanlike penalties. That's the first time in, I believe they said it was like 4 or 5 years that's happened under Nick Saban. So you think that they would want to get that and figure it out. We also saw that against Texas, though. So you think that, okay, Nick Saban's going to get this adjusted. And we talked about that after when we recapped the Texas game. Yeah, they're going to get that adjusted. Well, we're weeks in the future now, and it seems like that portion has not been taken care of. So turnovers could be an issue, probably will be an issue. And we'll see how the discipline works on the penalty side, because that has been an issue for Alabama as well. Those are the things that need to get done if Tennessee wants to win this football game. We've seen some special teams things happen in favor of Tennessee. Alabama let up a pretty easy onside kick to Arkansas, so it could help them as well. Tennessee has the opportunities to win this football game. I'm going to keep saying that. They have the opportunities. It's right in front of them. They even got Peyton Manning coming in to make the guest pick. All right. Everything is falling into place for them. But they got to execute perfectly. This isn't a game where they can make any kind of mistake if they want to be arguably one of the best teams in the nation. Now, here's my last question to you real quick, Steve. Number 6 versus number 3, 2 unbeatens here. Let's just say, because we've already seen Alabama's number 1 in the country this year. Let's say Tennessee gets the job done today. Are they the new number 1 in the country?
They should be. Will they be? No, because writers are wishy-washy and they're lazy and they don't want to dig into the numbers. So they're going to just say, well, Georgia's still number 1, so that's okay. And Alabama was only 3, so you really shouldn't go to number 1 for beating number 3. They have some kind of weird sports writer math that I don't understand. But I mean, I think you can make the argument that they're the number 1 team in the country if they do that. And I just want to clarify, you are picking Tennessee to win outright like I am, or you're saying you're taking the points in Tennessee?
My bet is I'm taking the points. However, I do think that they're going to win outright. I'm not confident enough to take them on the money line. So my bet is them on the points. However, I do think they can get it done.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the third and final game that is with 2 unbeaten teams here in our Saturday. Half of our Saturday 6-pack is full of unbeaten teams. That's how good this slate is. Again, the first time since 1993 that we have had 6 teams unbeaten in Week 7 facing off against each other. We head into the Big 12. Oklahoma State take on TCU. TCU had a tough matchup against Kansas last week. You could say that TCU was handed that game. You could say that. I don't think you should, but you could say that based on how it ended last week with a possible horse collar, possible pass interference. There was that opportunity that could have happened. But regardless, Oklahoma State versus TCU, this is going to be a prime football game. The Big 12 has gave us some really good ones. The Pokes are no joke. And we've talked about some really good quarterbacks that we've talked about lately. This is no different in this one. Max Duggan, he's come back from being the backup and then turning into arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. And then, of course, we have Sanders, who has been absolutely electric from the beginning of the season. We've really just, you and I have really got to a liking to him. This game is going to be a really good one in my mind. I think there's some good stats to back it up. TCU is currently the favorite at -4. That's up from -1 at the beginning of the week. So the favor is really leaned towards TCU. But the projections are very close. A lot of people think that this is a very even game. SP Plus on ESPN has it. The projection of Oklahoma State only winning by 0.01. And then the FBI is only TCU by 2.6. So a lot of people are favoring Oklahoma State in the points on this one. That's exactly where I lean to. I really like Oklahoma State in this football game. I think TCU showed a little bit of weakness with their secondary last week when Kansas's backup quarterback Bean came in and threw some great touchdowns. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Bean's a great quarterback, and we're going to probably see him this week against Oklahoma. But that Oklahoma State offense is absolutely deadly. And I think they're going to take care of TCU. I think it's going to be a good football game. Don't get me wrong. I think they win by a score, maybe 10 points at most, but I'm going to go with the Pokes on this one.
I'm with you there. Now, of course, when you and I picked Oklahoma State and TCU to be undefeated at this time of year,
right? We totally,
and to be the class of the Big 12. I don't think anybody. So you could say what Oklahoma State. Okay, these guys are sleepers. I believe you may have said when we were talking early in the year, Oklahoma State could be a sleeper in the Big 12.
I definitely said they could be a sleeper. I will say, if we had a full projection show of the Big 12, I would have said that TCU was battling the bottom of West Virginia. Like, I didn't think TCU was going to be a good football team at all.
Agreed. And then Duggan, man, we've slept on both of these quarterbacks. We have not talked about Sanders nearly enough. And Duggan probably is more valuable to his program than Sanders is, because I think Oklahoma State is deeper, from starters down to second and third strings across the board than TCU is. But I mean, ultimately, TCU under this coach, they've got 5 wins already. They've only averaged 5 wins a season over the 3 previous seasons. So that's telling you that the Horned Frogs are buying in to this program and how to play football. They seem to be a very disciplined team. They don't really waver much from what you expect them to do in any given game plan. This is going to be a war of attrition, really. It's not where TCU will get beaten. I'm not even sure they'll beat themselves. I think they're just going to get worn down as the game goes on. And Oklahoma State is just going to, make the statement, okay, we are the cream of the Big 12. And since we mentioned that, and I've got my WVU hat on and Texas Tech t-shirt, is the Big 12, top to bottom, the best college football conference in 2022?
Absolutely. I think that is a without question mark for me. I think that the Big 12 has the most depth, and we just saw it in the game this week. If you were watching college football at the beginning of the week, which I strongly recommend you do, it's good for your health and well-being. West Virginia took care of Baylor, who we thought could be the Big 12 champion yet again. West Virginia, just like we said about TCU, thought we're going to be at the bottom of the pile. Now, West Virginia still is towards the bottom, but they might not be the basement dwellers. If we went in and talked at the beginning of the season that TCU would finish the season on top and Oklahoma would finish the season in the basement, we'd probably get run out of the streets with some pitchforks and torches.
Mm-hmm.
But that is exactly what is happening in the Big 12. Yes, this conference is the best by far this entire year. It's a shame that two of the teams are going to be heading to the SEC. I don't think that's going to change the fact that this conference is still going to be great in years moving forward. I think they'll find a way to bring in some more competition. Not only is the SEC growing, we're seeing other conferences making big names. Obviously, the Conference USA American making some big changes. We're going to see some different conferences, how they look in years coming up. But the Big 12 will find a way to bring in some big competition. And this conference is going to remain very relevant for a long time with the teams that they're building up. We're seeing basketball schools, Steve, become top-notch football schools. And Kansas is leading that charge. And with the Big 12, they are arguably the most deep conference in all of football. This championship game is going to be electric. I don't know who's going to be in it. I couldn't name you one team right now that is a shoo-in for the Big 12 championship. We have that in every other conference. You can make the assumption that Bama's going to be there because of how they play with divisions. There's the strong possibility that Clemson can be there. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But with the Big 12, not a single shoo-in.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm leaning toward Oklahoma State being that team that we're going to see there. But, and the Big 12, by having this kind of season, really is paving the way to bring in teams that could be competitive and serious fun replacements for Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So this is time for our obligatory, wouldn't it be great to have UTSA in the Big 12? That would, oh God. Oh,
well, we're going to see him in the American next year, so that's good enough, at least as a step up in my mind from Conference USA.
Yeah,
It'd be cool to see him in the Power 5, though.
I'm sure they can get out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be Santa. I know I've been a bad boy on these shows for the most part, but I would really love for you to find a way to get UTSA out of the commitment to go to the American and to join the Big 12. Thank you.
You've seen the commercial. John Hamm, Santa Claus, is sitting on poolside. He's on vacation. I don't think he's here in E yet. Okay. He's pretty mad that the World Cup is happening at Christmas time. Drixley also says Big 12 doing big things. Couldn't agree more. Also, it looks like they commented and said pokes. So they also agree that we think Oklahoma State's going to win that one. All right. Moving on with the Saturday 6-pack here. We have game number 4 and we head to the ACC, but we're not talking about teams that you would think of. We're not talking about Clemson, Florida State, although I think there's a possibility for an upset there. Historically, Florida State plays Clemson very well, but we're going to talk about North Carolina State versus Syracuse. And there is a prime opportunity, if Syracuse wins this football team, that we have another unbeaten matchup next week in Clemson between the Orangemen and Clemson, and that could really just decide the ACC if that happens. But Syracuse has to find a way to get through NC State. Clemson has to find a way to get through the Seminoles. It's no walk in the park for either of these games. Let's lean and talk about the Wolfpack and the Orange. And this one has a really good opportunity to be a fantastic football game. I think that it really depends on Dennis Leary. Now, I know we heard your theme song for Dennis Leary in the past.
Well, Devin Leary. Dennis Leary is my favorite comedian, but it's Devin Leary.
Did I say Dennis Leary?
Yeah, and Devin Leary is no laughing.
Look at me saying names wrong again. This clip will probably go viral. So I'm
the old senile one. I'm the one that can get away with it. You have to be more on top of your game. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Okay. You have to be Devin Leary as opposed to Schrader of Syracuse. I'm going to be like the Schrader of Syracuse level talent on the show. So
good. That's a good idea. However, Leary has been injured, and we've seen that in a couple weeks past. He really hasn't stepped up this season. He's really having a mediocre year, even when he was healthy. Now he's injured. We don't know if he's even going to play, and if he is, he's not going to be 100%. Syracuse is favored by about 4 points in this one. I'm leaning towards Syracuse.
How fun is it that we are talking about 2 5-win teams in the ACC, and we're not mentioning Clemson and we're not mentioning Florida State?
Yeah, it's great.
For the purpose of this conversation. Syracuse has surprised us all. They've had a really, really good year. I think Leary's going to play because he realizes how pivotal this game is. And just having the shadow of Leary there and the threat of Leary perhaps making the big play is enough to keep Syracuse honest. Syracuse is a great story. I think they're playing their way into a more meaningful bowl game than they ordinarily might have expected. And I'm not sure we even expected them to contend for a bowl really at the beginning of the year. I mean, anything's possible in the ACC. I mean, I think this season's schedule has shown that. But I just can't see Syracuse over 4 quarters being better than North Carolina State. North Carolina State has just enough, and I really like North Carolina State's defense as far as making big stops when they have to. So I think the Cinderella story ends with this game, and I think NC State is gonna win this game outright. But what a story it's been, and it's not like Syracuse doesn't have. I mean, they have a quarterback that can manage a game and get them and keep them close late and maybe pull something out, at the last minute. But maybe it becomes a game of kickers. I mean, Syracuse has a good kicker. I think North Carolina State, I saw a bunch of write-ups and they kept mentioning, the Wolfpack's kicking game. And I have to admit, I didn't dive deep enough in there to speak intelligently. Not that I can ever speak intelligently about things, but I just think NC State is just too good of a football team. They're not as explosive as they have been in the past, but I think that balance, that offensive balance, makes the difference and helps them pick up a win in this game.
What a season for Dino Babers, by the way. Dino Babers. He has really, there was an opportunity that he was going to be on the hot seat at the beginning of the year. There was talks in the offseason that this might be his last year at Syracuse. I'm pretty sure he solidified himself with that case. I think this game depends on the running game on both sides. North Carolina State has a great defense. They also have found ways to either get the running going or not. We've seen some mediocre offense on NC State. I think that's definitely their issue. If Syracuse can stop North Carolina State, I think they can easily win this football game. On the other hand, if a guy like Sean Tucker can continue his great run for Syracuse, who's averaging 150 yards combined between rushing and receiving per game, I think Syracuse has a good shot at winning this. I think this game's close. This is a good one to pay attention to. This is one of those games, if you lose, your shot at the ACC is done. This is basically you getting eliminated from ACC contention. So I think a lot is on the line. It's a shame that this one's at 3:30, the same time as Tennessee, Alabama. This is why we need more than one day of full slates of college football. I love that we get 1 or 2 games on Thursdays and Fridays, but it'd be nice to lean one of these really top-notch ranked games for a Friday night. What are we doing? We have prime opportunities to do that. I'm gonna still lean with Syracuse. I'm glad you're going the other way with North Carolina State here. I'm nervous about Leary's injuries, and I'm worried about their run game as well. So if they can't throw the ball or run the ball, obviously they become a one-dimensional team, and their defense isn't good to commit enough turnovers to do that. So I lean towards Syracuse to win this game with a potential, and I think Clemson gets it done too. So there'll be a potential that next week we have another battle of unbeatens for the top spot in the ACC. And we got to talk about that in week 8. We haven't talked about 2 unbeatens in the ACC in week 8 in a very long time. So that's pretty cool.
And you made a really great point about paying attention to a game like this. The ACC is a kind of conference that you really have to pay attention week in, week out, because you don't have necessarily the dominant. I know Clemson's been dominant in the past, and that's kind of played to the detriment of people appreciating the type of football that gets played in the ACC. But you have to pay attention to games like North Carolina State, Syracuse, to really appreciate the title game coming up, because you're not always going to see the names you're anticipating outside of Clemson in an ACC title contest. So do at least find a way to like sneak away, during a commercial, whatever it is, catch a couple of series. Who knows? You might get drawn in and actually want to watch this game as much as you want to see Alabama, Tennessee.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think that there's a lot of good football games on. It's going to be my TV remote's going to probably be broken by the time that this day's over, because I'm going to be switching back and forth so many times. All right, let's head into almost the final game for our Saturday 6-pack, game number 5, and we're going to talk about Mississippi State against Kentucky. Kentucky had a great start to their season. Will Levis goes down, and then they start to really just fade away. They had some issues in the last couple of weeks. Kentucky's having a lot of issues, not just at the quarterback position. Their defense has been pretty rough. Offensive line has shown some issues. We talked about last week that Kentucky's absolutely doomed without Will Levis. Well, looks like he'll play in this one, but Mississippi State has been one of those teams that you could make a solid argument, Steve, that this has been the most underrated team in all of college football this year with Mississippi State. And they go into Kentucky in this one, and I'm actually really sitting on Mississippi State. They're only a 4-point favorite. I'm just not excited about what Kentucky's done the last few weeks. I don't think they've done enough probably to get these adjustments done. I love Will Levis. I think he's a quarterback that we're going to be talking about next year at the pro level. But this rest of this team just makes me absolutely nervous. And I think Mississippi State can really expose Kentucky's defense. I'm going to take Mississippi State with -4 here, because I think they get the job done pretty easy.
I'm with you, and it pains me, because I maybe more than anyone has been on that Kentucky wildcard bandwagon, and the more that I've watched them, the more their defense has been exposed. Their offensive line is just not good. Yeah, okay. There's been some injuries. They are not protecting the quarterback. Chris Rodriguez has done a great job of finding openings now that he's back, but he's really having to work for those yards he's getting. And I think that's showing up late in games where he's really tired, not because he missed the games with suspension. He's just having to really bang for those yards that he gets. And, bad on me. I have been downplaying Mississippi State all year, and shame on me for not mentioning even once Will Rogers as a possible Heisman candidate. I don't know that he gets into the final, but he's done everything you could ask of him. He's thrown for 22 touchdowns and only 3 picks. But most importantly, when you go back, and I've generally gone back to watch Mississippi State, on the little video, games in 30, games in 60, whatever it would be. He's patient enough that he just waits and finds just the right opportunity to deliver the ball to the right receiver at the right time to keep a drive going, to register a touchdown. Mississippi State has earned the respect of all college football fans. And I today on this show say, I'm sorry, Mississippi State fans. I've shortchanged you all year. And by all means, hate mail should come directly to me at Feckless Wonder. not to Christian or to Slasher Sports. It's not their fault. It's my fault. I was really skeptical, and I'm an absolute true believer now.
Mississippi State has really thrown the football, and that's something that we have seen. They're averaging over 350 yards per game. Kentucky's almost letting up 200 yards per game through the air, and that's a lot for an SEC opponent. I just lean towards Mississippi State here. What does Kentucky need to do to get this win? Rodriguez needs to step up. They need to stop doing reverses on the first play like they did last week. That South Carolina game was a rough one for them because Levis was out. I'm trying my hardest not to, define Kentucky's entire season on that SC loss. The Ole Miss loss was because of turnovers at the end. They should have won that football game. They just had 2 really bad weeks. This could easily be one of those games that Kentucky turns it around, rebounds, and finishes off their season. They have a lot to lose in this one. 4-3 looks a lot worse than 5-2, especially in the SEC. But on the other hand, Mississippi State, they win this football game. The only loss they have is to LSU, who was on the grind after that loss at the beginning of the season. They move to 6-1 if they win this football game. They're right up there in the SEC West, especially if Alabama loses to Tennessee. Really, the only competition they would be running into would be Ole Miss, who should take care of Auburn today. I'm leaning towards Mississippi State. I think this game has the potential to be close, but that's not where I'm leaning. I think they can take care of a -4 spread pretty easily.
I guess the fanboy in me for Kentucky says that Kentucky is going to find a way. Give them the points, and they'll be able to win it. As far as a bet goes, as far as a football game goes, I think it's Mississippi State. And again, they have a lot at stake here, and I think that their coaching staff's going to be okay. Look, we'll worry about what the Alabama outcome is when that score turns a final, but none of that matters unless you take care of business today. And if they beat Kentucky and they beat them soundly, meaning above the spread by more than a touchdown, I think now you do have an instant debate when Tennessee beats Alabama for who is the SEC West representative, in the conference title game. It'll be fun. I want to believe in Kentucky, but I think it's more of a fact that there's 2 star players on the Kentucky roster more than Kentucky is an all-around SEC contending football team. So I'm going to let my fanboys say that Kentucky with the points would be the winning bet on this, but I'm not super confident in that.
All right, there you have it. Lincoln Riley heads into probably his toughest challenge since taking over USC. Great start, by the way. 6-0 for USC after coming over there. LA football's back. We've seen UCLA, we've seen USC really step up. Too bad their fans aren't showing up on the.
I was going to say, right? If a team wins, in LA, does it make a sound? Does anybody know?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's fine for USC side. On the UCLA side, I think that we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks moving forward, especially if they keep winning. Chip Kelly's got them in a good spot. But number 7 USC takes on number 20 Utah. This could be a trap game for USC. I said that might happen last week. Could be a trap game at Washington State. I put out a question on Twitter and I asked, what were your bold predictions? And I don't know if this is very bold because I think I kind of lean this way. I'm not sure, actually. Let's talk about it. But some of the bold predictions said Utah is going to take care. I put it in quotes, take care of USC in this one. And then a couple of replies, even some USC fans said, yeah, this was expected. We think that USC could lose this game by 3 to 7 points. Lincoln Riley has really shown that this team can make noise and be a true contender for the college football playoffs. This is a flip side of a game from years past where Utah was coming in to a USC team. I believe it was 2019, where they were a top team in the nation. And USC beat them and took away all their hopes for making to the college football playoffs. This is a prime opportunity for Utah to do the same thing after losing a tough one in the week past against UCLA. This game to me relies on Cam Rising of Utah. He's a great quarterback. We've seen that in games past. However, there have been some times this year where he's made some bad mistakes that have cost his team the game. He threw a pretty bad interception in one loss, and we've seen some issues with Cam Rising. However, I know that the possibility of him being he has the opportunity or the potential to be a guy that could be in the Heisman race. He's not going to be, but that's how his skill level is. Can USC win this football game? Can Utah get it done? The current line has actually Utah favored by 4 points. I can't do that. I can't lean towards Utah. As much as I think that there's a possibility that could happen, the trap game might be USC offense. They can score. Caleb Williams is just outstanding. Travis Dye, who we said needs to be an absolute X factor last week against Washington State, has really stepped up. They're combining with him and Austin Jones in the backfield, combining for over 130 yards rushing per game and 6.5 yards per carry. Even though Utah has a top-notch defense, we see a lot of help up front. I just got to get USC that win. I'm taking USC with the points. I think they can win this game. I think this game is going to be really close. This is the game to watch in the evening time. This is definitely the one to pay attention to. 8 o'clock Eastern on Fox. This is the Pac-12 game of the year. Maybe just for now. Maybe next week we might have a different answer for that, depending on who wins this football game. But this is going to be a good one. I'm taking USC.
I think USC fans in the Eastern and Central time zones are going to wish it was a 10:30 start, because for the first half, the Trojans are going to probably be in this football game, but then they'll have fallen asleep in their chair or on the couch. So when they wake up in the morning, the nightmare's not going to begin till they actually wake up the next morning, because I think Utah is going to run all over the field against USC. Games like this, again, college basketball, I'll debate you game per game, team per team, conference per conference. College baseball, I'm very, very confident. College football, I'm renewing my interest again, obviously for the sake of the podcast and for those of you out there listening, but for the fact I don't want to look any dumber than I already do just by natural ability. So I generally turn to Pete Flutak of the College Football News with games like this where I'm really torn, because I want to believe in USC. I think if USC is relevant, it's great for college football. Whatever conference they're playing in, if USC is relevant, it's important. And they have arguably the best receiver in the country in Addison. But I just don't see any way for USC's defense to stop Utah's running attack. I mean, you have Jalen Glover and Tavion Thomas are simply too explosive and too seasoned to be contained. They ran for almost 200 yards in a bad offensive performance against UCLA. And UCLA's defense, we're not talking about a Hall of Fame caliber defense. I mean, they've done really well, and hats off to UCLA this year. I mean, and Chip Kelly, I mean, they really are making believers out of a lot of people. But I think Utah is just, you can't score points if you're on the bench. And Utah is going to absolutely dominate time of possession. It's not even going to be close. It might be close in the first half, but come the second half, it's just going to be run, 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 stop us, you can't. And Utah is going to pull away. They're not only going to cover, they're going to win in double digits.
If that's the case, USC, you would like to say that USC is the last chance for the Pac-12 to make the college football playoffs. UCLA is obviously making that an argument, but if Utah beats USC, say goodbye to their college football playoff chances for sure. This is going to be a good game to watch, especially after you're probably going to be absolutely just beat after watching all the other great games on the slate. So this will be a nice one to wind down. I'm hoping it's a close one. I could see it either way, like I said, but I just can't, on a betting side, I just can't lean towards Utah. I think USC's offense is just strong enough. That run game, like you mentioned, though, is something that Utah running game is absolutely incredible. All right, Steve, here we go. final 10 minutes of the show, we get to dig into some great topics. And what better way to start than one of our favorite topics, the Misfit games. With the Misfit games, the only really qualification is they can't be in the top 25. You take it a step farther and you head into a different league. You go to the FCS. What is your Misfit game of the week?
It's two ranked teams. They're ranked within the top 20 in the FCS top 25. There are, and we talked about it on our 5 for Friday already. There are two premier games. Number 1 against number 2, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, and number 3, Montana. Misfits, let's go. Absolutely. Again, this is not meant to downgrade the quality of these football teams that we talk about in this segment. Remember Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Island of Misfit Toys. Those are toys that anyone can love. And that's the best thing about this segment, is that we're talking about teams that you should be falling in love with and that they're easy to love once you have. Now, the Colonial Athletic is not the Big Sky. It's not the Missouri Valley. Those are the two dominant FCS conferences. They have been, they probably will be for the immediate future. But you've got a team in Richmond and quarterback, and I'm going to mispronounce his last name. Oh, no, it's Reese Udinsky, I believe is what it is. He completes 76% of his passes. And it's not like it's all little safety valve type stuff. He knows, again, how he utilizes all of his receivers. He uses his tight end, and he does utilize quite often running backs coming out of the backfield. Can Villanova's pass defense neutralize that? And as great of a season as Villanova has had, and Villanova does a great job running the ball. They've had 3 running backs put up 100 plus. And when I say 100 plus, I mean well above 100-yard games this year. But Richmond is going to be able to stake its claim to being the best team in the Colonial with this. Villanova has a shot. And in some ways, it would be great for Villanova, who really is just returning to football over the last decade or so. It's a basketball school. You could argue Richmond is a basketball school more than a football school, but Richmond has a little bit of better, more traceable football lineage than Villanova does. It would be great if Villanova can find a way to win this game, but I think Richmond really is going to make a statement saying, okay, not only are we a top 20 team in the FCS, if you can get past your Missouri Valley Big Sky bias, I think that we, along with Holy Cross, are a top 10 FCS school. And they have the quarterback and the balanced offensive tack to get that done and make that statement.
I still can't get over that Hail Mary from Holy Cross against UB. That was one of the craziest moments so far of the college football season, no matter what league you're paying attention to. All right, for my Misfit of the week, let's see how well this works out, Steve. Let's see how this goes. I'm taking the Wisconsin versus Michigan State. Jim Leonhard showed that he can be a pretty decent coach in this league. We saw him at defensive coordinator for a few seasons. He's stepping up as interim coach. We talked about possible replacements for Wisconsin. He took care of Northwestern. Now, granted, this is Northwestern we're talking about, who we had some thoughts that they might be good when they played overseas at the beginning of the year. Well, they played Nebraska, and then there's a whole nother story there. Northwestern is still Northwestern. Wisconsin, though, did show some signs of actually some pretty good football. They're 3-3. Jim Leonhard has the opportunity to get this team to a winning record against Michigan State, who is absolutely struggling. Michigan State has been a rough team, to say the least. It has been really hard for Mel Tucker. Did you hear what I said there? To make sure that they, I said Mel Tucker. Michigan State has really had just a rough season. Thorne has been exactly what that has been in the Spartans' back. I mean, without question, his last name is really working for him. 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. They talked in the offseason how great this running defense or running offense was going to be with Berger. And they thought this Michigan State running was going to be great. Well, they're only averaging 107 yards per game. It's been not where it needs to be. As much as I really want to have Michigan State take a step forward in the right direction, because they were fun in years past. We really, there's fun to watch this Michigan State team. When Michigan State's good, when that rivalry between Michigan and Michigan State and all that good stuff happening in the Big Ten, it's awesome. It's just not happening this year. I see Michigan State falling to 2-5, and I see Wisconsin being a winning record at 4-3, 2 games from a bowl. And it'll make you wonder if Jim Leonhard will be able to hold that spot. They decide to go with him. I'm holding on to that. If Leonhard can take Wisconsin to a bowl, he loses that interim tag. Wisconsin's a 7-point favorite. I think they cover with the points.
Okay, I do want to make a little wager. I'm glad you picked this game as your misfit.
Okay.
We have been getting some interesting pushback and feedback on a segment that we did about Mel Tucker at Michigan State and whether he's a mercenary or a paper tiger or a paper Spartan, I guess you would have to say. I want to challenge all of those Michigan State fans that have been giving us grief because he was referred to as Mel Turner and not Mel Tucker. Okay. If Michigan State loses, as I believe you and I both agree is going to happen,
yeah,
they have to, in any social media post or any reply to anything we do, they have to call him Mel Turner the rest of the year.
I think it's only fair.
Yeah, right. But if Michigan State finds a way to beat Wisconsin this week, I will come on next week with a big smile on my face, and I will look into the camera and I will lie and talk about what an underrated football team Michigan State is.
I like that. I mean, I feel like even if I didn't accept the bet, we're taking it anyways. So I think the coolest stat from this entire game, I know it's absolutely wild, but Peyton Thorne's passing yards so far this season, 1,234 yards. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's how simple that Misfits segment is out of the way, just as quick as that. To finish off the show, we're going to go to our bubble week because this is bubble watch, I should say, because this is the last week that we are going to get into our bubble teams, because after this week, we're already over halfway through the season. We're going to get an idea of who has the 6 wins and who's going to make it there. There's some tough teams on this list. There's some names on this list that people are probably going to be upset, but I mean, when you look at where they're at, it's hard to not put them on the bubble if they can get the 6 wins. We talked about at the beginning of the show, Steve, with the Big 12, on how if we would have talked about the beginning of the year, if we had TCU at the beginning, at the top, Kansas at the top, and at the very bottom, we had the Oklahoma Sooners, you would think that I would have to get checked in to a rehab facility. Well, there's no joke. Oklahoma is absolutely the worst team in the Big 12 this year. And now I'm putting them on bubble watch. There is a strong opportunity, Steve, that they do not get to 6 wins. The Brett Venables experiment, as much as I think that they need to continue with it and make another push, because I do think he can be a successful coach, is red alerts everywhere. I know Sooners are having a really hard time with Brett Venables, especially seeing the success that Lincoln Riley's having in USC. You look at this Oklahoma team right now, they are in a must-win mode against Kansas, who is going to start their backup quarterback in Bean because Daniels is doubtful. Probably not going to see Daniels for a few weeks. If they can't beat Kansas with a backup quarterback, I can't see them winning maybe any other game the rest of the year. Kansas is a tough team even with a backup quarterback, but right now Oklahoma's 3-3. They need to find 3 more wins this season against Kansas, Iowa State, Baylor, which might actually happen now, West Virginia, which seems to be a complete juggernaut of a wild card so far this year, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech. With the Big 12 being as deep as it is, and Oklahoma being as bad as it is, especially on those defensive woes, I just can't see them getting 3 wins in the next 6 games. I just can't see it. I think they're in big trouble. I think there's a lot of caution ahead for this team. We're going to see a lot of issues, a lot of gripes across social media, because I know Oklahoma Sooners fans, they definitely make sure they let people know exactly how they're feeling on those college football blogs and media posts. And I love that. Don't get me wrong. I love seeing people care about their teams. but there will be no shying away from this one. I think Oklahoma, at the very best, has a ceiling of 5-7 this year. I don't think they make it to 6 wins. They're on my bubble watch, especially if they can't beat Kansas this week. I just don't see them getting, other than that Kansas win, I can't see them getting 2 more wins in the next 5 games after Kansas. I just can't see it happening.
No, I'm with you 100% on that. Now, I'm going to go to my bubble team, and that's the Arkansas Razorbacks. Another team like Kentucky, I have to admit, okay, I was partaking in the Kool-Aid. Okay, I probably now at this point have to get a matching, tracksuit and get a bigger mug of my final brew here to face up to the fact that Arkansas is not the team I thought that they would be. And I started going through all the stats and digging in all that. But bottom line is Arkansas is not getting it done. And they have had opportunities to stay in games. I mean, I thought they played Alabama okay, but they ultimately didn't get it done. On paper, and when you watch video of games after the fact, you look at their defense and you say, how does anybody score on them? Bottom line is teams are scoring on their defense, and their offense is just inconsistent enough, and they're committing stupid penalties at bad times. I was going to break down the schedule, but I mean, I really think Arkansas, because of the conference that they're in, they could just keep sliding down and sliding backwards out of bowl contention. I think they are a better team and have a better opportunity to still make some kind of a bowl game than Oklahoma does. But Arkansas, one of the biggest disappointments for me in this 2022 college football season is the Arkansas Razorbacks. Their fan base is as passionate, maybe because it's a smaller fan base, doesn't have quite the national profile that a lot of the bandwagon jumpers onto Oklahoma have been while Lincoln Riley was there, and all the excitement and everything. And going back to people my age, when you had like Bud Wilkinson and all of these Barry Switzer, all of these Hall of Fame level coaches, it's easy to be a bandwagon jumper and say, oh, I've always been an Oklahoma fan. Oh, really? Have you been? But, Arkansas, they have to fight for their respect. And, they're losing this fight. I mean, they're losing the fight on a TKO. They're not getting knocked out. Okay, they're not the worst team in the SEC yet. But, I'm always taking out Vanderbilt. And we're beating up on Commodore fans. But they understand. They're waiting for basketball season. Okay, they're not worried about their football season. But Arkansas can find themselves in the same position as Oklahoma, where they're now at the bottom, not only of their division, but at the bottom of the conference rankings in general, because they just have not performed up to expectations. And it's another reason why football games aren't played on paper, and they're not electric football things where, the offensive linemen dance in circles there, and maybe your quarterback or your running back over a 15 or 20-minute period eventually makes it downfield. Arkansas is an electric football, looks really good, great uniforms. They look good, but as far as execution, they're just spinning around.
Yeah. At one point they were the 10th ranked team in the nation, and now they're sitting at a possible record of less than 6 wins. Right now they sit at 3-3. They play BYU this week. They are an underdog by about a point. It's a pretty even line. BYU's having a pretty rough season too, but the rest of their season, there's a possibility they can hit 6. I think they have a stronger case than Oklahoma. I think you're right, but I think it might come down to the last game of the year for Arkansas, where you have 2 5-win teams, I should say, with Arkansas and Missouri, and the winner gets a bowl bid. I think that we could have a strong possibility of 2 5-6 teams between Arkansas and Mizzou, and the winner hits a bowl bid. Like, I think that could actually happen. That might be a cool storyline that we might be talking about at the end of the year. And And who knows, that might be the way that they get into a bowl. But looking at some of the tough games, like for example, they play Liberty this year, a group of 5 team that is 5-1. And with Freeze at the coach, we've seen him do some good things. You can't say that that's going to be a surefire win that Arkansas thought they might had in the bag at the beginning of the season. So I'm with you. I think Arkansas is definitely on the bubble. 2 great picks. That's a good way to end that segment for the year. We'll see how they go.
I just want to say that I think for Arkansas, momentum in any sport is important, but so is confidence. And the last couple of weeks, you have seen a team start to hang their heads and droop their shoulder pads later in games. That's what concerns me. I want Arkansas to be in a bowl game. I still like them as a football team, but I really wonder if just momentum and fate is working against them here the rest of the season.
Absolutely, 100%. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining the Saturday morning special. We hope you enjoyed this loaded slate of college football because it is going to be one hell of a day. Be sure to join us back here on Monday morning as we give you some Monday moanings. We'll give you some reactions to our thoughts on some of these games. I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of them after this huge slate. And then also, if you are paying attention to Slasher U, we have dropped some college basketball content as well. We do have some brand new college basketball content out. We just dropped ACC preview and Big East preview. Next week, we're going to drop about 4 more conferences, starting off with a big preview with the Big 10 and Big 12. So that should be some fun as well. College football and college basketball, all on Slasher U, dropping you new content every day on the podcast feeds and YouTube. Again, YouTube's the best place to find us because we do give you some specialized videos only on the YouTube channel. And also don't forget to drop in. We do have a new merch link over on Slasher Sports. You can find that in the episode description below. Hit up some of your favorite Slasher U merchandise or any of the other great shows we have on Slasher Sports Network. Awesome. There it is, Steve. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you back here on Monday. Take care.
Thanks.